Welcome to Flat Earth Debate, Uncut and After Show. I'm your host Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon, and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth Debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are premiering. There's also a PayPal, Patreon, and crypto link in the info box below the video. Speaking of Patreon, I'm going to do a quick shout out to all of you who do support me on Patreon, so a massive shout out of thanks and appreciation to Melby Styles, Troy Shuker, Bo Snail, Joseph Pizarro, Samson, Maris, Mobile Max 777, Neo the One, Luscata FE, Rob W, Open Minded, Reese Pound, Del West Watson, Mike, Muted, Dick Earth Skeptic, NA Literalist, Maria Neelands, Unbelievable Productions, Blue Ridge Ranger, Rob H, The Real Gabster, Windrider, Liam Nedrick Jr., Abraham Mohammed, Naibai, Adrian Quintana, Skeptic936, Life is Short, Fireball X, Texas Mike, Edwin Johnson, Kirsten Smith, and David Wayne Foster. So a huge, massive, enormous thank you to all of you for supporting me on Patreon. Also, linked below this video, there is a link to get £50 for swapping your UK electricity supplier to Octopus Energy. With that, I'm going to hand over to whoever is in Discord and Google so you can enjoy their conversation while I set up for today's live show.
He wants a real one. Because somebody's got to get up there, all the way up there, high enough to see Earth spinning. You know, people in Australia, antipodal. It's an impossible bet. Nobody will ever be able to do it. Because it ain't happening.
I'm going to be doing a plug for Arwin show. I'm just in the other room at the minute, so as I heard a gap in the conversation, think of some nice things to say about Arwin as we're going to plug him. It's reached that time again. So it wasn't so long ago he was going, I'm doing so much work and I haven't even got 1,000 subs. Well, today I noted that he's like 1.85 thousand. I'm like, well, you're getting pretty close to 2. His response, no, I'm in the same place forever. It's like, no, you're not. It's just gradual. You gain a couple, you lose a couple. You might gain 3 and lose a couple. It's very slow. You know, that's where he's at. Well, what is it now? 19,000 subscribers on the main channel I've got. No reason why I can't bung Arwin a load of people and go and watch him. I enjoy him every day. I watch Arwin every day. You know, I really enjoy his content. It's like it's a criminal. It's criminal that he hasn't got more people subscribed to him. So think of some nice things to say about Arwin.
My man Dan seems to be obsessed with Arwin. Maybe we should get him to talk about it. He was in his chat yesterday. Like, that was ridiculous.
I wish I was around in the early days when Arwin first came on. I would have loved to hear his stuff.
Where's 10th Man at? Is that his black icon?
I don't know, but I know he used to be a baller. He used to go at it with Anthony or for Gravity.
What you talking about?
What's up, 10?
Yeah, I was just working on something else on my phone.
Well, I mean, we all used to be ballers to some extent. You know, nobody in the Western world is like that went through the educational system is anything but a heliocentrist. You know
Unless
what I mean?
unless your teacher tells you, I don't even believe it, but I have to teach it.
Yeah, but 10th Man, somewhere along the line, as you learned it in school, you had to, you never accepted that you were on a spinning water ball? You never, ever?
No, I agree with what John said to a certain point. because of the indoctrination, the movies, all the pictures.
Right.
To that certain point, I think everybody is. But like Chocolate and I have always shared on the show, we asked all the pertinent questions, got lousy answers, and the smell test didn't pass the smell test. So we were always saying, "There's no way." At the same time, we say there's no way. That's all we see.
Yeah.
Well, I was pretty deep into it, but I was kind of under the impression that we were measuring the curvature of Earth by looking at the horizon and measuring a dip angle.
It's an interesting thing you say that. So if the horizon is horizontal, level, what did you think dip angle was when they were measuring the dip angle from the globiola side?
Well, no, it makes sense, like if it is geometric, right? To say that we live in a physical, natural world, the horizon's part of that. And if it is geometric, then it is the shape of our world.
No, I'm asking dip angle. What was dip angle exactly?
Oh, okay. Well, what you do is you say that the position you're standing at, your zenith, is plumb, and the horizon's position's plumb, right? But when you measure out from your eye line, like that 90 degrees that your eye line forms, the horizon will be slightly below it. So then you take the distance to the horizon, and you got to presume that the reason for the dip is the drop of the Earth, and you use the tangent of the opposite and adjacent to figure out.
So you just said it. You just said it right there. Say that last part. You assume what?
Well, you assume the cause of the drop in the horizon.
Okay, that's it.
He's getting there. He's getting there. It's what he's saying is the drop is the stuff missing beyond the tangent point, physical horizon you described, with the measurement being made to the physical assumption. You can draw it as a tangent point and measure the drop from your 90-degree zenith that you started with. Well, that's a physical tangent point to make those measurements, right?
Yeah, that's what I used to believe. Yeah.
Content.
Yeah. So the trick, and it is a magnificent trick because it's got everybody fooled, is that the dip is actually your eye line above the water line, not a curve of any kind. So if you're 10 feet above the water in your sailboat and you're taking the measurement, as you said, John, with the zenith being plumb, and then you have to form a 90 degree, but you're 10 feet above the water, you've got a 10-foot angle to the horizon. So in your site reduction tables of the Nautical Almanac, you just go to the dip angle page and it tells you how high were you, or it asks you how high were you, and you say 10 feet. Then it's got the actual numbers that you compute, and it takes you to the surface of the ocean, the water line, so that you can form that 90 degree with your plumb, which is your zenith. That's the dip angle correction. Their dip angle is what Nathan's trying to say, I think, maybe he can expand on it, is through their Muppet Vision pictures, is X is the geometric horizon but they show it as a curve. So that's the first thing wrong with Muppet Vision, because I just described
Hold on.
dip.
No, you're describing Muppet Vision when you describe it like that.
Well, I am. I'm breaking. No, I know, but that's how they got everyone fooled.
Exactly. You can't have the line. You've got to have you on the left-hand side of the page, the tangent point in the middle, and the target with its claim to be hidden value on the right. So you've got to see the side of your own head to draw a tangent to this observation that's going to be compared to the geometry. So yeah, he's right. You've got to be in side profile to do this in the first place.
Right, but the side profile, the way I'm using it in context, doesn't work with how a sextant is supposed to work, and they always use that subliminal picture of a curved Earth to make you think that's how a sextant works. I'm going deeper into the magic trick. The measurement is never horizontal, is what I'm trying to say. All this is smoke and mirrors. The measurement is vertical for them. It's from the center of the Earth. It's never from the surface of the Earth. The sextant, the pictures, the guy holding it, that's smokescreen. Their sun rays are coming in parallel, which is not true, and they take the measurement vertically to the center.
Got it.
So
I
if I'm-
understand. That's genius. So what you're saying is, because they've got a claim of a curved surface beneath our feet, they can never draw a straight line from it. How do you get around that little problem? Well, easy. You've always got a zenith, and you can always draw 90 degrees to it. Well, then that's what they do. So you're always taking your zenith. Well, that's convenient because you can always point that zenith regardless of what you're actually doing, i.e. if it was a physical thing that you represented your zenith as, you'd hold out a line with a plumb on the bottom of it and it'd be pointing straight down. But in their reification, you start by assuming that that pointing straight down where you're standing is actually the top of a sphere. And therefore, when you plot it in a model, otherwise known as a datum, you'll be pointing at this angle at the presupposed spherical Earth. Now from there, they can draw a 90-degree angle to an imaginary horizon and measure the dip that you've got because of a sphere, because everything beneath your feet is curving away from you. So you've still managed to maintain the tangent line required to do the geometry by way of a 90-degree angle drawn to a zenith that you'll always have, and that always have a zenith will be always assumed to point to the centre of a presupposed spherical Earth. Kudos, 10th. Excellent.
That's the trick. See, they do everything vertically because they're saying the sun rays are coming in parallel, which we know it's not, because they're dealing with a circle or a sphere. And the only place on a sphere or a circle that you get a 90 degree of anything is if you go to the middle and start your radius, use that as your radius, and start doing straight lines. And so they've got the circle carved into 4 triangles that make a circle 360 degrees. So it's all vertical, but they smoke and mirrors as they show the sailor with the sextant and everything. It's not working at that level because the sextant can't work on a curved surface. Impossible. So if the sextant's being shown as working on a curved surface, but could never work on a curved surface, that's just smoke and mirrors. Every measurement's done from the center of a presupposed globe that doesn't exist.
Exactly.
Well, I would disagree with that because, like, no,
I'll show it to you.
Hold on, let me disagree first.
What you're saying,
Hold on. Go ahead, John.
If the horizon is geometric and sun rays are parallel, you can get that 90-degree line. But that's the problem.
Hold on. If they're parallel, what do you mean if they're parallel? Well, they're not.
Well, if the horizon was geometrics, the big one, because it's not. You know, when they say refracted horizon, they're throwing out everything they've claimed about sextants, the autolites. They're just throwing it all in under the bus.
Indeed. Because till now they could blag that they've got a tangent point.
All right. Let's go back. Let's break it down a little bit better. Sun rays have never come in parallel. Ever, ever, ever. The sun is a spherical looking ball of gas. Its shape looks round, doesn't it? And light's going to go in all directions. Their trick there, see, it's all tricks. Their trick there is if you move it far enough away, they not 93 million miles, but they'll say infinity, just off the page of any diagram they want to show you. If you move that light source far enough away, those divergent rays, one of them, because of the distance, will look parallel by the time it hits Earth's surface. That's what they're trying to get you to buy. Except
the trick is they point to shadows on the ground and say that they're parallel.
No, I agree with. No. You're convoluting what I'm trying to say. The shadows are on the ground is because the sun is no longer on your zenith. When the sun is in your zenith, you have either no shadow or very small shadow. because it's right overhead. It's plumb. As it moves away from a flat surface, a plane, the angle of where the sun's new zenith plumb position is and where your stick is that angle is the shadow. And that is the original sextant. That's exactly how a sextant works.
Correct.
It shows you the angle from the zenith position of the sun over a different geographical position. It's no longer over your head, it's over someone else's head 6,000 miles away. So what's the angle to that?
Well, in
The
their model,
shadow.
exactly, you've already covered it. In their model, they then turn it again side on with Earth on one side and then the sun off page in your description. Well, what you're saying is it's so far away that you've then got their description of all light hitting all of that surface of that sphere in that side on profile being parallel. But it means you've got to ignore the evidence of your own eyes when they make that assertion as you watch the light being, as you described, directly above your zenith, creating a shadow beneath your feet if you lifted them up. But then as it appears to move away from you, you get a different light coming in that's definitely not parallel with your position, even though it's over there. You can point at it in a different place. Well, at that point, you've got the divergent light coming off it. It's not still pointing straight down as depicted in their model. Here we go. You've brought up the diagram at just the right point for me to show exactly that. Perfect. Well done. I've got it on screen. You want to continue?
Yeah, go ahead, take over. You know what to
do.
do.
No. Well, I'm saying if you want to continue where I've just left off, I've just summarised your point, which is to say that as you move along these positions, obviously it's not directly over your head in figure 2A, whereas in figure 2B, they want the sun off page and all of the light coming in parallel being the reason for your movement of shadows. It's like, well, no, the light is not coming in parallel. You know, the sun hasn't got this particular light where they're describing it in close proximity just to visually represent how their light moves. When the sun actually comes in, exactly as seen on this picture, it's not parallel. You've got to deny the evidence of your own eyes for their explanation to make any sense. It doesn't make sense, and it doesn't work with sextants if it's got a curved surface beneath it.
Perfect. You're hired. Yeah, see, a sextant cannot work on the surface if the surface is arced or curved. It can never work.
I even understand that. It's over.
So then what they do is they use that as the, I like the words here, but I called it a smoke screen earlier. Like, this is how we're able to do navigation using the stars. We'll call it celestial navigation or astronavigation. In reality, when you dive in deep into how sextants work and how the nautical almanac and light from any luminaries, either the moon or Sirius or Polaris or the sun, they say all measurements are from the center of the earth. They only take the vertical, not the horizontal. You know why? Because you can't work a sextant on a curved surface because it's not horizontal if it's a curved surface.
Right. And you'll always have a zenith on a sphere, and you can always draw an imaginary 90 degrees to that zenith. So that's what they do. They've never got a tangent line. They've never got a flat surface to work with for this example. So therefore, your sextant doesn't work on a sphere. And you're saying, well, when they give you a convoluted description, which I couldn't recite now because I don't know it, you're saying it's just smoke and mirrors descriptions of how it wouldn't work.
It's backward engineering. Because
well,
hang on, John, hang on. Let me finish with Nathan. Now you want the penny to drop. Here's the penny drop. The sextant does work on the Earth's surface because the Earth is a plane, and they backward engineered the book, get you to think it's from the center, but the sextant is working, but they won't admit it could only work on the plane. Let the penny drop.
Exactly.
Well, hold on. Now, on the divergent sun rays, the way that they claim it's parallel is if you get 10-foot sticks, two of them, and put them 10 foot apart, you'll not be able to measure any divergence between the shadows from those two sticks.
The angle of the sun as it moves away, it casts a longer shadow. So I would disagree with that 100%.
No, the light from the sun will not diverge upon the two sticks 10 foot apart enough that you can measure it. And that's the trick.
If the sun, hang on, maybe I'm misunderstanding, but if the sun is directly over those 10 sticks, the one in the middle will have the least shadow. If it's a localized light source just to do, say, a test. As you move that localized light source away from it, the shadows are on all of those sticks, and they will be different from distance. I've already shown pictures of this.
Well, see, that's the thing. Rumpus could probably argue this a lot better than me.
No, you can't argue it. Just go take a flashlight,
Let him
put it
try.
directly over
It's okay.
a stick.
Let him try 10th. Go ahead, John.
Well, the 0.5 divergence that he spoke about, not 0.5, he's talking about the size of the sun and not actual size, apparent size. But with the two shadows of those sticks, there's no way to measure a divergence between the two shadows. And that's where they get their claim of parallel rays. But even with the parallel rays, even if it were parallel, the horizon must be geometric for you to be on a sphere. And to say that the horizon's refracted is to deny the sextant and theodolite.
Correct.
So it's kind of a double death.
It's a paradox.
Yeah.
I'm gonna, Nathan, I'm throwing stuff up, as you can see. Just keep showing it, and we got major problems with what John is trying to say and fight for the globe side here, just for the sake of our arguments for back and forth.
Okay, I'll skip through the memes that other people are posting in between. I'm at the guy looking at a sphere or a hemisphere.
Yeah, so that's how it could only happen, but no one's down there. Because we don't live on a globe, and you got to presuppose it. So, but that's where the measurement starts from that point where you can have a corner. You can't get an angle without a corner. That's why a sextant cannot work if the Earth was actually a globe. But the sextant does work, the penny drop moment, because the Earth is not a globe, and you can do the proper dip adjustment, take it to the surface of the water to get your 90 degree, and then find the star in between that to know what angle you are to it. So sextant does work because we're on the flat plane, but it can't work if we're on the curve. But since they have to sell us that it's a curve, the only way it could work is to go to the center. And then that guy looking at the center has the angle because that's where the two lines meet to create the vertex.
This is where I'm going to have to disagree with you, because if the horizon
I love it.
If the horizon was geometric, then you could measure that.
So you're stuck on the horizon, right?
Well, yeah,
You're stuck on the
that's what they're measuring too.
No. You're stuck on the horizon, and I'm saying that the sextant, in the way that they make it, operator's manual, everything, you have to do the proper dip measurement so that you can have, say, if the sun's directly overhead, plumb, then the sextant, once you take off 10 feet and get to the water level, is exactly at 0 to give you your true 90. That's how sextant must work. It can't work that if the Earth's surface is curved. It could only work like that after the adjustment of height, just height from where your eyes were, if you're on the flat plane. That's the breakdown.
How about
sun rays come in. I'm sorry, I'm just posting pictures for Nathan. When you have a circle of equal altitude, you remember that slide, John, that I shared?
I'm not sure I've seen that.
Okay, I'm going to post it up next. Yeah, this is my next one coming up. Circle of equal altitude means you're equidistant. So you say the sun is 3,000 miles away from you, and it's directly over a certain part of the Earth. That would be the geographical position, okay? So you're 3,000 miles away from the sun's GP, where its zenith is at the moment on Earth, and you shoot it with the sextant. you make the adjustment for how high your eyes are above the ocean, and it gives you a circle of equal altitude. So you just don't know where you are in that circle, longitude, latitude wise. But that circle, this last slide, if you see it, Nathan, tell me if it's up. Yeah, you may have gone for coffee. But anyway, that circle is equidistant from all places on that circle. So you're 3,000 miles away, say, from the south looking north. Another guy's 3,000 miles away from the north looking south. And if you make a circle, anyone on that circle is 3,000 miles away. That has to be flat, because the only way you get that angle is to have two straight lines. But they're supposed to live on a curve, Earth, with an arc at 8 inches per mile square. Are you following what I'm saying?
Yeah. And if they were to make
Yeah,
those measurements
yeah.
and assertions that it is curved, they just add the R in afterwards. So they take these measurements, only capable of derivation by way of a flat plane, and then they add in R. So you're saying the reverse of that. If R was already there, you couldn't get the angle in the first place.
Okay, I'm sending you one more here. This is a killer one, this last black and white. Tell me when you have it.
Okay.
Okay, so this is, you can see it's got all the numbers, and it shows the star right in the middle, and it shows a curved Earth here, actually. So the sub point is the zenith position of the star. But anywhere on that circle, you're 3,000 nautical miles. You just don't know where you are till you do another circle, and where the two circles meet, you're at one of those 2 points. But this circle, as depicted on this curved Earth, is smoke and mirrors, because you can see they're showing you angles on the stars from the edge of the circle, and then you see the angle sign going towards the middle. That has to be flat all the way to the zenith position, the GP of that star. You can't hold that angle if the horizon dips 1.22 miles away from you. An actual curve, not a dip, but a curvature starts. It is impossible to have 3,000 miles of straight line and say you lived on a curved surface.
Excellent. Great slides. Just so
It's gonna get
John's,
better.
just
It's
so
gonna get
John's clear,
better.
though. Just so John's clear. It's not to take away from your point, though, in any way, shape, or form, because you're still absolutely correct.
Here, I'm going to show you the trick, and I got this from a guy. He had an SCAD program. I can't download this. I had to take screenshots, even though it was a free download. I'll have to have Adam do it or something. You see it?
Got it up now.
Okay, now we're looking from the inside. We just carved out a section of the Earth, and here's the trick right there from the center, where the radius can be measured of any circular object. And you see how they've got that circle of equal altitude and the GP?
Yep.
That's how they do it. Not from the surface, because you can't, it's curved.
Ingenious. How to turn a flat plane into a spherical surface by way of presupposition prior to any measurements being made. There it is.
Yep.
They're going to have to take it on the chin.
On the tin
Don't
chin.
get me started. I'm not going to drive Nathan nuts with all my chin puns.
No. Well, if they're appropriate at the right time.
Well, I had it on your show, remember? I went crazy with them.
Yeah, well, at the right moment.
Yeah, that's why I'm saying I won't do it now. They'll have to go to that episode and look up the comments. Take it on the tin chin if you want 10th man's chin puns.
Oh, okay. I didn't know you'd posted that. Okay, I'll have to check that out on the...
Oh, are you kidding me? You jumped in there, and you even jumped in there and had a jab at me. Did you forget?
Probably. Yeah.
Listen, there's a definite new dum-dum in town, and it has to be your man Sam. I listened to the show last night. Oh my gosh. Oh, what we
What
got
happened?
now? What we got now? 8 different reference frames now. Pre, post,
No,
mid.
they're all ruined. There was a lot of good content in that, so that ended up that show got at least 3 clips now out of it. I think there's another one in there as well somewhere, but it's a fairly long show. It's about 3.25 hours. So I've trimmed out the 3rd clip. So far, that's all there is, but there might be a 4th. Anyway, that's going to go out tonight. So I've called it the Simon Dan effect, where they basically demand that we prove their claim they have Coriolis effect. And the manifestation of this Coriolis effect would be in aeroplanes. That's us turning beneath them to cause them to seem to drift. That's what Coriolis is. Now, because we point out it doesn't happen, they then reverse the burden of proof and demand that we prove that there's a claim of 2 reference frames. We have to suddenly cite the globe's claim of Coriolis. Why? Well, so they can tell us it's debunked, like Simon Dan did. So that's been titled the Simon Dan effect. It goes out just before Quantum Erasers show. So it's going to go out about 7:45.
So Nathan, I'm gonna do a plug for your show, but in the 10th man style. Okay. So that Tin Chin show that you did, everyone go to Nathan Oakley 1980 and find the Tin Chin show. Well, I put up a comment, and this I'll just do 2 or 3 of them. I won't do them all. I said Occam's razor on Rumpus's Tin Chin, and then someone came in and said Hitchens' razor on all of you, and I responded, chin there, done that. And then they came in and said the same thing, Hitchens' razor, and I said, say something new, or I'll have to contact your next of chin. And then he came in and said, Hitchens' razor all day long to everything you flat earthers complain. And I responded, sorry, your reply just vanished into chin air. And it just goes and goes. So go on to that show, watch it again, and jump in.
I noticed something the other day about that guy with the one picture argument. I noticed something about him. I think actually reciting the Black Swan argument back to us hurts them, like mentally hurts them, causes them like actual.
No, he just didn't
pain.
know it, John. He did
I'm sure
not
he's
know
heard it. I'm sure he's heard it, and
Yeah, he's heard it,
probably,
but it's hard to recite it.
But no, it's not real hard to recite. It's fairly simple, but to actually articulate it.
I think John's got a point. I think you got a point here, because it's there begging the question put to a logical consistency. So we're agreeing with them with the begging the question, and they can't do it because it hurts them.
Oh, you're saying it's painful for them to even say it?
Yes. Yeah, I think he could say it, but it hurts him too. I think that's what that was all about. Because if he can say it, then he has to start recognizing the words and what they mean. You know?
Yeah.
It might force him to understand it, and he does not want to understand it.
Well, if he says it, he's saying his position. If P, then Q. And then it goes into then every horizon distance. And then all of a sudden what he holds out to be his reality falls apart because of the Black Swan
Right.
show. No,
that's what I'm saying. To actually articulate that, to say what I believe is wrong, you'll never hear a Glober even acknowledge that they could be wrong.
Yeah.
So I think trying to recite the Black Swan argument, and I think they would rather die.
Have they even recited it? You know, I'm trying to think if any of the Globers have recited it. Have we heard Rumpus recite it? No.
Well,
We should make them recite it.
The main part is, if the Earth is a sphere with a radius of 3959 miles, well, that's their position. then every horizon distance measurement must be no more than 1.225 times the square root of the observer's height in feet, Q. Well, that's their position, geometric horizon. If it doesn't happen.
Well, see, that's the trick, though, right? I hate to pick on Christians because I identify as a Christian, but I'll have to for this.
Well, you can pick on people who use the Christian religion, or how can I put it? That's
Okay.
the wrong way. You can pick on people who use Christian teachings and make a religion out of it. How's that?
Let's not get hung up on his example. He's just making an example. Go ahead, John.
Right. If there was a logical consistency argument, say, I mean, this is absurdity to argue that your epistemology is falsified, but if there was a logical consistency argument that falsified Christianity, right, then I don't think a Christian could recite it and hold to their faith as strong.
Excellent.
And I think that's what.
I'm glad you got to the
That's
end.
an excellent
Perfect.
point.
Hold on. Glad you got to the end because I've said the same thing. Exactly. If you recite the Black Swan and you can understand it, then you are essentially relinquishing your bull belief. So they can't recite it. So I said this about, it was probably a week or two after the anniversary, the 12-month anniversary of the Black Swan. The reason they're what we were calling not understanding it, not getting it, is to understand it is to relinquish your belief in a bull, because it's no longer logically tenable to believe you're on a bull. Now, labouring this point because John was the one leading into this, and it's specifically this argument where he's looked at it and gone, based on the logical consistency, we don't have a tangent point anymore. We can't do earth curve geometry anymore. We haven't got earth curve anymore. All of those things are as a direct result of understanding, or to the point where you could recite, the Black Swan argument. That's the point. And he's saying, well, if you're a Christian and you hear an argument that leaves the argument untenable, you're going to find it hard to recite it.
No, I agree.
That's what I mean. Not that there is an argument like that for Christianity, but if there were, just trying to understand where they're coming from, I couldn't recite it.
No, I would. That's what
that would be blasphemy.
Let's not get into that. Don't, 10th, please. Don't bite on his analogy, please. I beg of you.
I'm going to add to it, because the scripture says test everything before you believe it. So I would deny it if it was a logical, consistent, if it fell in that category. I'm supposed to check out my faith. I'm supposed to check out the evidence. That's what the Bible doesn't say, have blind faith. So I would deny it if it was deniable.
Why couldn't you have?
Why couldn't you have because the Black Swan is not deniable.
I agree with that. That's not what I'm saying. I agree with everything John is saying and what Nathan's even saying right now. What I'm trying to say
I was about to make a
that
suggestion.
as an,
I was going to say, why couldn't you have debunked Jar? Why couldn't you have picked on the Rastas?
No, I'm just saying a Christian must be honest. A Christian who's a Christian is going to check the validity of the sources that he's going to trust in. He's not going to just go on blind faith. That's all I'm saying.
Hold on a second, but it would be debunked. So everything in Christianity wouldn't be relevant anymore.
Oh, can you just leave his analogy alone? God. It's like yesterday, people in the chat immediately. I make a comparison with people wearing... I could just, please don't talk through me, please. Yesterday, I tried to make an analogy with people wearing masks. And immediately, everyone in the chat is immediately latching onto that analogy, the comparison, not the actual point. It's like, who cares? Okay, he's used Christianity. Okay, fine. Don't let it trigger you guys. Come on. He's making an analogy about not having a physical geometric sphere edge horizon, a tangent point necessitated by geometry. And when you're presented with a logical consistency that leaves you in a position when you cannot claim that anymore, it is untenable. It's akin to showing a Rastafarian that you don't have jar. So there you go.
Time out.
But yeah, let me try it with Hinduism.
Hold on a second. I agree.
Don't just leave the religions out of it, bloody hell. Oh, God. Neil, please.
We all agree with John. We're not challenging whether it's Hinduism or Christianity. I went on, once the argument was finished talking about it, I just went to a different subject, that a Christian would be honest, and if he saw something, he'd have to do the right thing. He couldn't believe in a lie.
Indeed.
I
Shiva be praised.
As a Christian, it would kill me.
Not
Okay.
me. I checked out Christianity before.
I'm losing my will to control this. So by the many arms of Ganesh, please, let's give it a rest.
I
Oh,
like the analogy, and I'm getting pushed with tent to defend it.
I'm not defending anything. I'm enjoying this
I thought it was
conversation.
perfect because there is no way I'd be able to say that and still, but it would kill me. So I agree. That's perfect because that's why ballers don't say it.
My whole Christian life, I've been debating the validity of the Christian message with agnostics and atheists. I welcome the challenge to challenge Christianity. This is my playground.
He's not. God, it's
You're
triggered you
missing the
that badly,
point.
hasn't it?
I'm not
He's
saying
not.
he's doing it. I'm not saying he's doing
You
it.
are.
I'm
You
just
can't
saying
get it.
this is how.
Triggered 10th. Not often we see this.
I'm not triggered. I'm not saying anything about John's statement. I'm already done with that. I'm saying in my life, I welcome challenges. So I'm already ahead of
You
you
missed
guys.
the whole point, Tent.
Yeah, that's the whole point. That's the whole point. You're done with his point, the main point, the point I'm trying to get us back onto, and you want to defend the Christian point that he's used in analogy. And I'm saying, please.
But that's not what I'm doing. I'm defending everybody's point in every system of belief they have. It's not just Christian. Why do you think I limited it to that?
Let me ask you a question. Can you defend?
Stop it, Neil. Let me finish, Neil.
Stop it. He's triggered, Neil. Let him get it out.
I can't even finish my statement, Neil. You're jumping in. I don't care if you're any religion in the world. You need to defend it because that's what you believe. And then we say, why do you believe that? And they say this, and that. Okay, let's look into it. That's all I was saying. I'm not saying.
Then defend the religion of the globe, beating the black swan. You can't. You have to relinquish it.
Exactly.
I'm not arguing that.
That's why I'm saying it's painful. It would be painful for a Christian to recite it because you'd have to throw it all out.
And a Christian would if it was false, because then he'd know he had a false faith.
And I come in with a high-pitched voice too. Allah be praised.
I give up.
Well, hold on a sec. I'll explain why I chose Christianity, because they believe there's an objective reality, just like the materialists believe there's an objective reality.
What? No. I believe in objective reality.
Right. That's why I chose that for the analogy.
But I just said they don't.
No, I didn't. I said I chose Christianity because they believe in an objective reality, just like the atheists believe in a mind-independent objective reality.
I thought you said don't at the beginning of the first time you said it, but go on.
But that's why I chose them for the analogy. Now,
yeah,
that's the only reason I chose them. I myself identify as Christian. I'd not seen an argument for that, but I was just saying if there would, and me being honest with myself, recite that argument would hurt me.
It would kill me.
I'll give you an argument.
And that's what's happening to the ballers.
Neil, calm down. I'll give you an argument that will kill Christianity. If Jesus Christ did not rise from the dead, our faith is vain.
Long live
And how would you prove that?
What are you talking about?
This is where you go to evidentiary. You have eyewitness accounts.
How would you prove something didn't happen?
I'm not saying it didn't happen. If you can prove that they faked the death and burial and resurrection of Jesus Christ, that he didn't rise from the dead, and all the eyewitnesses were in some little plan to fake it. If you can do that, I don't know how you would do it, but if you can do it, that would be, and if it was true, then there is no Christianity.
But that's Christianity.
Neil, let me finish, please. The whole argument for Christianity is the resurrection of Jesus Christ. If he did not rise from the dead, our faith is vain. We have nothing.
I thought there was a great analogy, John. That would kill me to recite that. And that's why ballers don't recite the Black Swan. Perfect.
It's painful. It's so painful.
what a lovely day!
Welcome to Flat Earth Debate Live. I'm your host, Nathan Oakley, and if you are new to this channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button if you'd like to become a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member and keep up to date with the Flat Earth debate. If you would like to support the channel, there is a super chat that runs alongside each of these shows while they are live. There's also a PayPal, Patreon and crypto link in the info box below the video. Also below this video, there is a link to get £50 for swapping your UK electricity supplier to Octopus Energy. Most importantly, if you'd like to join the discussion, simply mute the page you are currently watching, then click the link in the info box below this video to join the panel and express your views on the nature of Earth. If you do join, please don't swear. If you do, you'll be ejected, and if you are, please don't try to rejoin the stream using sock accounts. You'll be warmly welcome back on the next stream. Please also share the show on social media. Sharing the show obviously increases the live audience, but this in turn increases the chances of a more diverse panel, so please share the show on Facebook and Twitter. One last time, if you're new to the channel, or you've not done so already, then be sure to subscribe, hit the bell notification icon and join button to keep up to date with the Flat Earth debate. Now, we are joined by Arwin, interrupting my introduction, as always. Father of a stolen child, Neil, 10th man, and a whole bunch of people in Discord. So welcome, one and all.
Greetings.
Hello.
Good morning. Hey, good morning.
Did you queue up your link to spam my live stream chat with, Arwin? And so
Sorry?
That'll be a no. So before we get into the housekeeping questions, I'm going to do a very heartfelt plug for a channel that I watch literally daily. And that channel is called Arwin, Arwijn. And he has a show called The Flat Earth Early Bird, which goes out UK time at midday. Now that Arwin does a couple of hours a day, it means I can actually catch it daily, and I do. I like listening to Arwin's show while I'm getting stuff set up for my show, and occasionally I'll pipe up and chat. Just as a noteworthy, enjoyable side aspect of Arwin's show, his chat's always good fun to interact with the people in there. And yesterday he had Simon Dan in, which was good fun, asking about his own words that he couldn't face. Very amusing indeed. So I'm hoping that while I'm saying all of this, Arwin's going to go away and ferret up a link to one of his shows so he can put it in the live stream chat. Members only to chat, but you can still click on this link and go and subscribe to Arwin channel today. It'll be the best thing you do all day. So do it immediately. Go and subscribe. ARWIJN. Go on, interrupt my plug for you.
Ow. Yeah. Sorry, but thank you very much, Nathan. I'm embarrassed to say that I do forget to put your link of the show in the chat. But it's a little tricky because I don't get a notification until you actually go live.
Hey, don't worry about it. You're going live prior to me, so you're busy doing your thing while I'm starting my thing. So don't worry about it, other than your interruption daily during my intro. So I see the screen flashing while I'm looking at the camera. Other than that, I've got no issue with that. You don't have to share my show. It's the other way around, right? You're the smaller show. It's not beat around the bush. And there's potentially, right now, a 19,000... strong pool of people that could potentially listen to this plug and my call to action. So hopefully, as long as you finally stuck it in the live stream chat. That's the most important thing. I'll also stick it in the the comments below, and I'll pin it because this is going to be subscribe to Arwin Day on the live stream. So go and subscribe today to the Arwin channel, and you'll thank me for it later.
Woo-hoo. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Well, there's no reason why.
It's good to have you in my chat too, because you do typically arouse a lot of special feelings. So when you get in, usually that's the start of a lot of activity, especially from the ballers.
But like I say, I dropped in yesterday, and I'm like, you started banning people, and then because I'm a mod, I could go back and actually look at the comments that had been erased. And there's people nagging you about green screens. I'm like, what the hell is this all about? I don't really get it. I scroll up a bit further and there's Simon Dan. And all he's got to attack you on is your presentation and lack of green screen behind you. It's like, well, I'm sorry, Dan. It's not the case that Arwin's part of the mainstream bullshit rhetoric that needs propping up and recommending everywhere to everyone like you. So, unfortunately, for people like Arwin and myself, we're pretty poor and can't afford green screens. And that's not really the thing we're addressing in our discussions, though, are we now? We're discussing the lack of drift, for example. You and your reference frames have been ruined. So I got to challenge him on that, which was great. You know, hi, Simon Dan. You and your reference frames are ruined. Epic.
That's what I was going to say. But
Yep.
you said
I
it already.
missed that.
It's still there. Yesterday's show. Arwin
You see,
channel.
that's why you got to tune into Arwin. First of all, Arwin is ace. He's one of my favorite flat Earth minds. This guy's got a mind that's unbelievable. So, subscribe to Arwin today.
Wow, thanks.
Indeed. Great show.
Well, when you got lack of drift, you have to attack lack of green screens.
Lack of what? I missed that.
When you have a lack of drift, you have to attack the lack of green screens.
Exactly. You can attack people personally if you don't have anything. And after about 10 or 15 attempts to get Simon Dan to actually discuss his own quoted back to him, he started attacking me and my kids. I'm not even joking. That's bottom of the barrel. Scum.
Not only that, he also attacked me for not having kids, right?
So it's all about the kids.
With that.
Exactly. We're all for talking about the drift and the claim that Earth's supposed to be turning underneath to cause a Coriolis deflection, requiring 2 reference frames you say have been debunked. Quote, you and your reference frames have been ruined, Simon Dan. Well, he didn't want to address that, but he wants to talk about my kids, Arwin's lack of kids, his kids. Just wants to talk about kids. What gives, Dan?
And his income, of course.
Of course he wants to brag about his income. Like I say, he's being propped up by the YouTube algorithm, recommended to everybody. Well, we're being discussed in Congress about how we'll be prevented from being recommended to anybody ever. But obviously they can say, oh, well, it's just because I'm more popular. No, it's because we are suppressed while you are promoted. Facts. Discussed in Congress. What are we going to do about these flat earthers telling people the earth's flat? Well, we'll put a little thing below them and we'll make sure no one gets to see their stuff anymore. Well, I can type in flat earth and I still see stuff. Whose stuff? Dan's stuff. That's whose. That's why you're making the big bucks. Meanwhile, we're happy being honest. Big bucks, yeah, that would be nice. I'd rather have my honesty and dignity. And an ability to answer a quote that I've given. Unlike you. Coward. Hope it's worth it. That said, I am totally jealous of all the money you make. It's my super
But that's the thing, though, you know. Lies and money are a very toxic mix.
Indeed.
Because you think you have all this advantage with the money, but yeah, you actually have to waste a lot of it to basically deal with the lies, because lies hurt. They hurt you. And you have to constantly be worried about, are they going to figure it out? Right? It's not pleasant.
I don't know.
It's going to cost you. It costs.
Nathan looked pretty dapper on the top of that building in Japan. He was making a big bucks then, huh, Nathan?
Yeah, but I had no. Oh, I didn't think we'd get into this prior to housekeeping, but there's a balance that you can strike in life, and on one side of the balance, you can earn the big bucks, which I've done. You know, I've driven around in the posh cars, earning the good money, flying all over the world, and describing my life as being like James Bond. And in a way, it was. It was a lot of hard work, and I had absolutely no time. Lots of money, but no time. Lots of toys, but no time. So then you go, all right, well, I don't want that anymore. So at a point in my life, after I've been sacked, I was like, what do I want to do next? I'm like, well, I want to have time, not work all the time so that I've got the big bucks and the nice suit and the nice car, and you're never at home to enjoy any of the things that you've actually earned. Well, you go the other end of the extreme, which I did for a while on a very modest part-time job, and you've got all the time in the world but no money. So you've got to strike a balance, right?
Well, I guess what you're really saying is I want more concepts so you can get a concept car.
Well, it's proportional with YouTube. That's why I love what I do. Not only do I love the subject and making videos, it's proportional. The amount of work I put in, you can directly correlate how much I'm earning by how many videos I put out. Well, if I'm dirt poor like I am at the moment, you can see the videos being churned out. I discussed this with Arwin. I might as well get into this now. I didn't think it would come up, Arwin, but it has. So I sent Arwin half of a PayPal that I got. So someone sent me a PayPal. I'm broke. So I'm like, well, if I'm skint as all hell, there's a good chance so is Arwin, right? So I was just like, here's 5 of it. So I chucked it Arwin's way and told him I want my super chat reading out, even though Arwin prefers PayPal, so you don't get a message to actually show for it. Anyway, that's Arwin's bag, and I'm not going to criticise that. Support Arwin's PayPal. Anyway, that in mind, you can see that obviously I want to generate more revenue, more income. Therefore, I'm putting out more material. well, that means that the work I put in is directly correlated to the amount of money I get out. And I enjoy what I do, so it's no big deal other than the lack of time. So over this entire weekend, I've spent very little time with my wife. Now, the kids are there whether I like it or not, but, but ultimately I'm not dedicating time to them. I'm dedicating time to editing videos and scrolling through them to find bits that I want, and finding thumbnails and making slides to go in the videos that I'm editing, etc., etc. And all of that is directly proportional to how much time I end up with at the end of the day. But if you're poor and you want to earn more money, that's what you've got to do. Anthony, I've got you not subscribing or presenting to Boo Conspiracy 3. Did you want to add something in this regard?
No, I was just waiting for you to say, is there any evidence of measured Earth curve?
Yes, let's stop talking about YouTube revenue. I moan to QE about talking shop, and now I'm talking shop when I should be promoting Arwin and doing the housekeeping questions. I am so sorry to all of my audience. Anyway, let's move on. Right. Any evidence of a physical geometric sphere edge horizon? Subscribe to Arwin. Formerly known as Earth curve.
Not evidence of Earth curve or geometric horizon, but there is evidence that refutes the claim. So we've all heard about Black Swan. We know that the horizon's an optical phenomena. And even the ball earthers are getting the message now. They understand, even though they misrepresent it, they understand that the horizon is an optical phenomena. Therefore, there is no geometric edge. They get it, right? We get it, they get it. We're all on the same page. I just want to move the boat out a little bit further and just present this. This is absolutely wicked. Taboo Conspiracy's latest video just come out. It's had 3,000 views already. It's been out less than 24 hours. It's fantastic. What I want you to be aware of is he's looking on this lake. He's literally at one end of the lake. Doesn't matter what lake it is, but it's basically 20 odd miles, 18.8 miles. So call it 19 miles. One of them's at one end, other guy's at other end. They both got lasers and they're firing it at each other. And obviously over 19 miles, the amount of so-called Earth curve should be prominent. And now in this video, what he does is he shows that they're both firing these blue lasers at each other. And I want to just show this this image here. Now, I can probably get a better frame. There's a better frame. So Taboo Conspiracy is looking at the guy firing towards him over 19 miles away, okay? We all know, without doing any maths whatsoever, 2 cameras on a tripod or 2 lasers on a tripod at water's edge, we're talking hundreds of feet. It's about 200 feet. But he's that far away that he zooms into it. And I just want to show this, because basically this focal point in the middle is the blue light that they're looking at 19 miles away. Now, what he's demonstrating is not only is the source light there, he's also showing a reflection of the source light along the surface of the water over the whole 19 miles. Now, ball earthers will always say, yeah, but refraction explains the source light. But they can't explain this reflection, because the reflection is obviously bouncing off the surface of the water, reflecting. And obviously they always apply Snell's law for refraction. But that Snell's law also applies to reflection, because the angle of incidence equals the angle of reflection as well. So we're seeing a reflected light source all the way across the surface of the water. That isn't possible if the Earth's a ball. Yes, they can explain away with infinity refraction, the source light, but they can't explain the light reflecting underneath. It's completely impossible. Now, I just want to push it a little bit further and show you what he also shows with regards to perspective, which is about here. So what he's doing here is he's got his laser that's basically, he's trying to get the other guy in the distance. And Taboo Conspiracy's laser is obviously the one in the foreground that we can see clearly. And he's trying to get the attention of the other guy. And what he's demonstrating is how perspective actually works, because we don't understand, or ballers don't understand how perspective works. But we've all seen the grid lines where it goes down to the horizon. And we imagine it with planes. But this is literally the same thing. This is literally him doing it with his camera. Everything goes out towards the horizon. It converges at the vanishing point. It converges at the point of convergence, or the Airy's circle of confusion, or whatever word you want to describe. That's the effect of perspective. And ballers completely ignore this in their orthographic representations. So the point that I'm making is that over 19 miles, when we get to see this guy's fantastic, let's see if we can get it back on screen. This fantastic, let's get the little bit there. Come on, a little bit more. I just want to get the source light so it's there. There we go. This is not possible if the Earth's a sphere, regardless of the horizon point, because it's that far beyond the horizon that we can't. Wherever the horizon may or may not be, we're seeing the reflection of the source light below it, and that isn't possible on a sphere. So forget about maths, forget about like refraction and all that. Somebody on the ball Earth side needs to explain this reflection underneath. What's the explanation for it? Because this is a new bit of science that we want to ask about, because their model doesn't explain the reflection underneath. So what is the explanation? And we should now move from Black Swan towards this, because at 20 miles away, that horizon is only 1.6 miles away, and it's clearly more than 19 miles. So how big is this ball that we're supposed to be on? Or is this all refraction, looming? Does the reflection of the light underneath loom up with the light itself? So can somebody explain this? Because we're all a bit dumb. We just like to know what the explanation is on a ball, because I don't see one. Anybody got any ideas?
There isn't one. You can't explain this on the ball. You've declared that. Requesting they explain it isn't going to achieve an answer to this on a ball. It can't be achieved. So there is no science to be offered. You could potentially, if you'd got, I don't know, a lake that became very still and you got a reflection off it, you could say just about, you could call that a phenomena, I guess. But I don't think this is capable of sciencing, because I don't really see any phenomena that requires studying, other than maybe reflections, if you're going to weasel that as a phenomena. But there's certainly a logical consistency to be offered, and you've already offered it. Not capable on a curved surface. It is that simple. You have summarised it beautifully already, Anthony.
Well, I just think that now that most people do get the Black Swan argument, we need to now push it a little bit further and say, okay, now you get the horizon's optical. Now explain this. Because this really, if you're on their side, if you're a ball earther and you've got any honesty whatsoever, your position isn't really tenable, because the reflection debunks the claim that it's a sphere, because there wouldn't be any reflection on a sphere, because their horizon is only 1 mile away as well. That means that we're constantly behind the curve on them. How does the light get to us that's reflected? And obviously it can't. It's glorious.
Just give clarity. Just give clarity. It can't, on their assumption we're on a sphere with a physical obstruction at 1.2 times the square root of the observer's height in feet. In reality, it does, it is, and it has, and you can present it, and there it was. So no explanation required from us. There it is. It's just doing it because that's what we see. And now beyond that, you can assume that we've got a curved surface and a problem, but I don't assume that it's a problem to see this occurring. It's not. Earth obviously and observably flat, no explanation required. No why are we seeing this required on our part. Now, if you're going to assume that it's a problem when we're just seeing something, then yeah, fine, feel free to explain why you've got a problem when we're just seeing something occur. No explanation required by us.
I have a question.
Go on.
In the beginning, you said that everybody knows the Black Swan argument. Everybody understands it. So let's move forward. Have you actually ever heard a baller recite the Black Swan argument to you correctly?
What they do is they deliberately pretend that they're ignorant and dumb. I know that they know it. They've got it. They understand it. I know that they pretend that they don't.
And I think you're going to find, if you listen to the 3/4 of an hour discussion about it on the pre-show, intermingled with a bit of Christian triggeredness. Sorry, 10th. You'll see that we don't agree with that, Anthony. In other words, to understand the Black Swan argument is to relinquish your ball belief. So to claim that they do understand it, but they just deny their understanding of it, I don't think that's true.
In my experience, they do. I've had them where they do admit that the claim from the Black Swan argument is that it's optical, because they call it refraction. So I do believe that they understand it. They just pretend that they're dumb. Maybe I've got it wrong. Maybe I'm giving them more credit than what they deserve. But they understand refraction, and they know that it's refraction.
Yeah, you're saying they understand half of it, but therefore, what does that mean? Okay, it's optical. Okay, yeah. Well, not geometric then. But they're not going to say that, because that's where they've got earth curve geometry to prove. Well, what do you mean, not geometric? You're asserting earth curve geometry at the horizon with a physical obstruction, tangent point, with a straight line to it. Moved, bent, refracted, optical, none of those things tie in with your geometry. So you haven't got your geometry anymore. End of sphere assertion, end of sphere geometry, end of earth curve tangent, end of earth curve. They don't have earth curve. As soon as they say it's not physical, well, it's not physically blocking boats, it's not obscuring things into the distance, there's no feet and inches value to be measured for this optical, non-physical thing that's moved with refraction. How are you going to draw a tangent to it? That'd be a straight line. You're saying the line to it's bent? So no geometry. Dead on every single count. Bye-bye.
You know what might be interesting is to offer 2 minutes of uninterrupted presentation, if only they can give the logical consistency and the black swan argument correctly.
What you're saying is,
because it's painful for them.
Exactly, you're saying, come to our altar, kneel, and profess your understanding that the Earth is not a sphere. That's what you're saying.
No, I'm saying you can preach your religion freely for 2 minutes, but you have to say it correctly.
No, but they can't. That's the point. As soon as you say, if the Earth is a sphere radius 3959 miles, then every distance to the physical geometric sphere edge horizon asserted in their geometry can be no more than 1.2 times the square root of the observer's height in feet, and the distance to horizon in the black swan is way beyond 10 miles. Therefore, we don't have a physical geometric sphere edge for a horizon. We don't have Earth curve. We don't have their assertion of sphere geometry. Then they're going to go on to assert how we have sphere geometry. No, that's to relinquish their sphere belief. To understand and recite, in this example, the black swan argument is to relinquish your sphere belief. It's not that they don't get it. They can't get it if they want to retain their sphere belief.
Well, I got an idea. Why don't we start asking them to recite it and see? Let's see if they start cringing or if they do recite it. Next time a baller comes on, we focus strictly on a black swan and ask them to recite it. And we'll put this to the test.
I think that's the reason why they won't come on, because they know that they can't. Because ultimately, by saying that it's an optical phenomena rather than a geometric edge, the natural progression is that it's not the leading edge of a sphere, and they don't like it. They can't come on.
Well, as long as they can refract it without thinking of any of the illogical implications, they can hold on to, this is, it might be a hologram, but it's a hologram of Earth curve. But the black swan doesn't allow for that.
That's correct. It buries the model further. So when I approach QE, why don't you just present a picture that was taken a week later or a week earlier, I forget which, that's got a picture that's clear as crystal, really beautiful, with all these flames coming off it and no distortion, looks epic. And his response was, I want them to say refraction. Why? Well, because they need a tangent. If they're saying the horizon's refracted, then their geometry dies on the spot. So you're saying in response, so long as they can say refraction, but they obviously don't appreciate how the argument then leaves their model untenable. They need a physical horizon. They used to claim it blocked boats and buildings with its physical nature. What, but that's now refracted? Well, you were only asserting it was blocking things with a tangent to it. But that line's now bent? So you're not going to be drawing any tangents to it then? That's leaving your model in tatters, debunking your model by rebuttal of refraction. Bending the line you need to do the geometry doesn't help you. Now, you're saying so long as they don't realise it doesn't help them, they can keep barking it. Yeah, well, that's what QE wanted. Keep barking refraction. Every time you do it, you bury the model further.
By the way, props to QE, because that's like a checkmate move in 3 moves.
Nobody's
It takes a
under
minimum
any...
of 4 moves to get to checkmate.
I was going to say nobody's...
What I meant, but QE does it in 3. That makes it even painful.
Other than Globers that want to put their vitriol his way, I don't think any of us are under any misapprehensions about smarts when it comes to QE. Yeah, he's definitely an intelligent guy. There's no 2 ways about that.
So he did not even let you in on it?
I mean, let me in on it. We discussed it. I just didn't get it. So when he was explaining it to me, he was using an example prior to the modus tollens argument formulation in public form on the 1st of Jan 2020. We were discussing it back and forth. And I can't remember how he phrased it to me initially, but I didn't like it. You know, and it was paraphrased around Ben's example where if you extend out the horizon to their mathematics and derivation of an R, you end up with an Earth that's the size of the orbital path of the moon. That's where the equator would lie, or beyond the orbital path of the moon in the heliocentric model. That's how big your Earth would be. Now, that's crap, because you're reifying a sphere edge and saying, look how bad the sphere edge would be when I reify it in this way mathematically. It's like, I don't like that. But then when it got rephrased into, we'll assume what you assume, Earth, the sphere, radius 3959, you're telling us, yeah, it's okay to assume R, right? West, yeah, of course we assume R. So their rebuttal to a logical fallacy being pointed out to them, that they're begging the question of an R value, was, yeah, of course, we already know it's a sphere. So then QE took that one step further and says, okay, if we know it's a sphere, radius 3959, as you are going to assume, because it's okay according to you, then you'd have a physical geometric sphere edge. And that's what you're arguing in your maths. But we've debunked it. You don't have it, right? We don't see geometry. It only exists in the maths. We wouldn't expect to see Earth curve. Those are the quotes we get from them in rebuttal, burying the model further.
No, I meant the part where he said he wants them to claim refraction. You didn't know about that at that point?
Yeah. No, I know what you're saying. And yeah, I didn't get it. That's why I said it to him. I wouldn't ask him to show a non-refracted image if I understood that by saying refraction it buried the model further. At that point, I just didn't understand that. It was being explained to me at that stage.
Could it be stated that ballers typically... I lost my wording. I'll get back to you about this.
Subscribe to Arwin today.
Subscribe to Arwin.
I just finished lunch. Right, now I know what I was going to say. Could it be said that ballers basically apply intellectual bureaucracy? Right?
It can be said.
What makes bureaucracy, like in politics, in government, is throwing shit at you, busying therapy, causing you to have to postpone for so long that a whole bunch of people will be discouraged and drop off, not go for it anyway. And I think that that's really, on an intellectual level, what baller strategy is, or has become mostly. Intellectual bureaucracy.
Yeah, I quite like that.
That might be.
Go on, John.
I said that might be, but I don't think it's to deceive other people as much as it's to deceive themselves.
Spot on.
I didn't never think of.
Absolutely correct.
I didn't think of it, but I've never heard them say the Black Swan argument. I've never heard one of them recite it.
But you're spot on. It's their pain.
Ever.
And they project it straight onto us. That's why I say, share your pain.
Well, they do like they really do like their misinterpretations of what the Black Swan actually is, though. They really like those. I've heard several trains of thinking in how to misinterpret the Black Swan. Like, oh, but there's a white swan over there. Or, yeah, it doesn't really matter. I can't really have I don't have any specifics right now in front of my mind. But I've heard so many ways in how they address the Black Swan incorrectly, and then just go for it like it's genuine. Like, yeah, but this is the Black Swan, right? Even though it's been said hundreds of times. It's quite remarkable.
We should force them to say it.
I think that's the whole reason they come around flat earthers are to preach at them and tell them how stupid they are, pretty much. But you could use that to your advantage, because all they want to do is talk. Tell them you'll give them their time to talk, but first you have to recite the argument.
Yes, I agree.
I don't think they'll do it. I think they'd probably shoot themselves in the head before they would do it.
Or they'll say they don't believe it.
If a ball earther came in now, then would you say that before we can get them to address the reflection underneath the laser, the light source laser, would you say that we've got to get them to address the Black Swan argument first?
Yeah, because I'll tell you how I'll think about the laser if I'm a baller and I've not accepted the Black Swan. I can just say that reflection underneath the laser is a reflection of the laser at a further point down the line because it's curving around Earth. But anybody can make up an explanation.
Yeah, but if we were to draw it orthographically and then I asked them to show me how they get the angle, it never works. Because if you try and do it orthographically, we should get Rumpus on to do it, to demonstrate it orthographically. You know, the way that he always does. It doesn't work.
Well, it never worked to begin with. The horizon's not geometric. You know what I'm saying? Like, but that's the original source of their pain, is understanding this.
And the source of their refraction that they're going to be applying in orthographic view as you're requesting, it requires R, Anthony.
Exactly. Yeah, they don't have it.
I know, I understand the argument for R. They always assume a gravitational field. They always assume R. They always assume it's a sphere, curved water. They always assume those three things. I get it. But I want to see them struggle to explain it, even though we're begging the question. I just want to see them struggle. It's like when Newton's apple falls off the tree and they can't explain it with Einsteinian, even though that's the current science. They can't explain this either.
But what I'm saying is to link this to John's point, that when you know where they'll go with their explanation in terrestrial refraction, and say they loosely assert what John has asserted, well, it's going to be a position further down the line along the sphere refracted, and the reflection's refracted. Let's calculate the refracted reflection. Well, that's a bit of a tongue twister. Anyway, at that point, the refraction that they're going to apply is requiring an R value that's derived from a physical tangent point. Horizon, formerly known as Earth curve. So it links back to the Black Swan when they start applying an R-based refraction value in orthographic view that they'll tinker with to get it right in their side profile. But where'd you get the R value? Well, we got it from the geometric physical sphere edge horizon tangent point. Well, where'd you get the tangent? You're talking about it being bent. In other words, it links back to the Black Swan because they're going to apply a value that they haven't got an R value for anymore. We've debunked it. Any evidence the R value? Earth radius.
Black Swan.
Pretty sure that's dealt with.
The radius is assumed.
And debunked.
He just said, that guy just said the Black Swan's been dealt with.
Any evidence of axial rotation of the Earth-based variety in that case?
Yeah, I heard the same thing.
Simon Dan. Reference frames ruined.
Hold on, I heard somebody say the Black Swan's been dealt with. I'd like to see where. Did I mishear?
Don't think he misinterpreting what the person was saying. He's saying any evidence of R, and then Arwin said Black Swan. In other words, we've already dealt with R. Black Swan deals with R.
Okay.
Correct.
I'm baller hungry.
Yeah, I can tell. You're keen. You're keen. It's good. But any evidence of a self-perpetuating molten iron core at the centre of a presupposed spherical Earth? Yes, Black Swan's already dealt with the presupposed spherical Earth bit before anyone else jumps in with the same thing.
Oh, that's funny that you mention it. Remember how I asked earlier, what about volcanoes? Aren't they connected to the molten iron core? Well, I actually saw this very non-flat Earth aware geology-based video about this ocean bottoms and about sort of islands that if the ocean were lower, they would be like almost continents and everything. It was kind of an interesting video, even though it was all extremely spherical. But at some point of an animation, they actually showed how volcanoes are directly connected to the molten iron core and that the plate shifts and that's how it deposits volcanic island masses basically in a straight line over the ocean over the ages. It was all extremely presuppositional, but that stood out to me because you said no, it's not connected, but according to the geologist and their animation, it is.
according to the cartoon, no, it's plate tectonics that is claimed at the Ring of Fire based on the friction to cause volcanoes. It is not connected in the heliocentric model to the molten iron core.
Are you saying that the geologist was wrong?
The cartoon was wrong, I'm sorry. It's not even part of their claim. Now, it might morph into their claim, Arwin. These things are just cartoons and reifications of models. So you can do whatever you like to them. So that might change. It might be that they connect the core.
It wasn't just visuals, though. He also said it. So...
Really? Well, that changes everything.
Yes, I know.
Can I ask what would a molten iron core look like? Is it red, like lava?
I can answer that from a baller's perspective.
Okay.
You wouldn't be able to see it because of the intense amount of pressure. If you actually, it's the same way that blood in your veins is blue. To actually witness the molten iron core would be to mean that it was erupting onto the surface.
What he's saying
So it's
is
blue.
you can't cut a presupposed spherical Earth in half and have a look at it in physical terms. But there are plenty of cartoons of exactly that, and it just shows it like a gobstopper.
I was just going to say gobstopper.
Ooh, I found back the video, by the way, if you want to take a look.
Do I want to see this cartoon of them claiming that the molten iron core is connected to volcanoes? Well, yeah, I suppose you can stick it in Skype and I'll check it out later to see how they're spinning this yarn. It might be a new part of the rhetoric that we're yet to see.
All right, I will. Posting it right now.
Any evidence of the distance to the sun?
I don't know where it
No,
is
but-
right now.
If you use R, can't you calculate it?
Where are you getting R from?
That's a problem.
The alphabet.
Calculated.
I love it thrice.
You
Very
mean
sharp, very sharp.
Can you triangulate the distance to the sun based on an R value?
Right, triangulate
Yes.
a not actual location to an intangible object. Let me think.
Right.
To triangulate, doesn't it have to be tangible?
Well, technically, no. You can still triangulate it even if it's not. It's just whatever assumptions you're going to hang on to the conclusion of that. That's where it becomes a little fuzzy.
Well, even when you do triangulate it, it's not its actual position either. It's refracted too. So you can triangulate its actual position with an R value, but not its apparent one.
Hold on.
What?
Hold
No,
on.
you can't even triangulate it if you don't use an R value. You
No, that's
cannot
sneaky.
engage in triangulation.
Don't let that get past you, Arwin. That was quite sneaky, John. I like it. So what he's done is he's removed the assumption of physicality by one step. So he's saying it is still physical. It's just that the position we see this physical sun is refracted. So it's still physical. He didn't say it 3 times like I did. He just carefully slipped it in with an assumption after the fact by way of stating, well, no, this position we can triangulate, he started with. Oh, can we now? Good Globe roleplay, by the way, John.
Well played.
But yeah, you got to learn to stick it in the beginning, or other, and then you can claim that they're like rumpusing you or cutting you off if you don't get to finish.
Their claim is there is no refraction at the zenith position.
No. Sorry, 10th. So the assertion is, how do you triangulate a not actual position, refracted or otherwise? Yeah? It's an apparent location. And the item itself is intangible, not touching it. So when I say you can't, the trick that John's employed is to say, when I can triangulate it, and then give a slight justification why the physical assumption of a physical body in the sky isn't quite in a position that you could triangulate it, even though he's just said he can. And why? Well, because it's refracted. What's refracted? The physical, capable of triangulation sun that he's now described with a little sidestep by way of refraction. Correct, John?
Yeah, you got it. You've seen this before, huh?
But if I throw back in their face that their claim is that when it's at its zenith position, there is no refraction, what say then?
Well, that's the only time it's not.
Okay.
Good answer.
I'm going to call you father of a stolen ball. If you keep
Hold
this
on,
up.
he's just got 10th on the ropes. So now you're into his assumptions, 10th. Where are you going to go from here?
I'm not into his assumptions. I'm going to use the sextant and destroy everything.
Hold on, he just said if it's above you, there's no refraction. That's what he said, right? Unless I misheard him.
Right, but that doesn't prove you're on the ball.
Hold on. He successfully sidestepped you. So he's saying that there's now a
How does
circumstance.
he sidestep me?
Because he's now got a circumstance where there's his assumption of its physicality and then his declaration that it's not quite in a physical location because it's refracted. Now he's given us circumstances while we're under the assumption of its physicality that's not been addressed by you so far, 10th, and it's not refracted, it's directly above him, so he's got a tangible position now. Have you, John? It's tangible now, it's over your head, so it's tangible.
Yep, not refracted there. So physical.
Oh, right.
That's the only
There's a
point.
big assumption that we're not addressing.
It's a dirty trick. I shouldn't have done it, Tim.
No, it's perfect.
No, I don't feel like you got me on anything. I'm not even talking about that. That's the problem.
Okay.
Someone else can come in from a different angle, and you guys think you got him, but you ain't got him because I'm talking from the other aspect.
Now, I'm giving him props because we're at the stage now where the panel is so proficient in globe arguments that we can calmly disseminate with all of the logical fallacies, sidestepping, obfuscation, minus the rumpusing, and give a clear rendition of a globe argument, which has been done by John, with a little tactic thrown in for good measure. He's also given me enough air in between his claims, and I've given him enough time to actually make them, so that the audience can hear the position being presented, as it would be presented, then the pulling apart, but with a concession at the end, him like, yeah, it's just a dirty trick. Well, when do we get to that stage ever with an actual opponent? Well, we don't, but as I say, props to the panel, because now for an audience member, they've just heard that all played out. No rumpusing, very concise, and concise within the deception, within the argument structure that they'll use and do use. It's just John's good enough to actually know how it's done, do it, and give me the time to respond to it, and concede at the end. You know, to have joy. Hallelujah.
Well, it's all.
Well
I
played.
feel I should engage in ad hom right now, but I'm
It's
not
all
done.
in the model. Let me read something. To predict the position of a star, one has to account for atmospheric refraction. In a simple model, the atmosphere is treated as being composed of layers of gas with variation in density and temperature due to height, but no variation with latitude or longitude and no turbulence. In such a model, one can predict the position of a star to a great deal of accuracy. So it is a useful model. And in this model, there is no refraction at the zenith, as the light doesn't pass at an angle through the medium of varying optical density. The model.
Yep, spot on. Hi, Adam.
Hey, Adam.
Afternoon, guys.
Good to have you. Been a very productive show, very educational. Those of you watching, mainly due to... Go on.
No, I was just saying, running out of work, mate. I was just hoping to get here before you disappeared so I could get in. What we covered then?
Well, we're
Taboo
covering...
conspiracies.
Yeah, go ahead, Adam. Anthony.
We covered Taboo Conspiracy's latest video with 19-mile laser observation with reflection of the laser underneath the light. Have you had a chance to view it?
You know, no, but I will be doing after this.
It's glorious.
Brilliant.
So what I was just pointing out that if the Earth's a sphere, because of Snell's law, they always use the angle of reflection equals the angle of incidence. The angle of refraction equals the angle of incidence, but because that also applies for reflections, it isn't possible to get a reflected light underneath the light source on their model. And I just really want to see somebody explain how it's possible, because we all know it's not, because it's not part of their rhetoric to explain the reflections underneath the light source.
And from there, Adam, we went to them asserting refraction and a challenge from Anthony for Rumpus to present it in orthographic view, only for Father of a Stolen Child to point out that you need an R value, which they can't acquire. Black Swan debunks that assertion, therefore you can't then refract the light with an R value that you're going to weasel and manipulate to get it to look right in your model. Anthony's response to that, well, even if you could, you can't do that with a reflection. So ends the argument.
Yeah. See, this is where it's good cop, bad cop, because like Nathan doesn't like begging the question, and I don't mind begging the question just to see them get tangled up in all their nonsense. So it's like, come on, Rumpus, join and let's see you explain it with your orthographic view. And obviously, we all know he's not going to be able to do that. It's ridiculous to think that he could. He's going to have to come up with some new form of refraction where it bounces off the ionosphere or something.
I think that would be a great idea for Rumpus, but I think he should have to recite the argument of the Black Swan first, correctly.
Arwin in the chat says he's going to have to change his name to Father of a Stolen Ball. And I don't want anyone else on the panel to take this personally, but you are an extremely valued member of the team because of your recent transition from Globe. I know we discussed that you would troll Morgile as a Globe head, but it means that you've somehow, unlike most people who are slightly overwhelmed by the fact that they've had this epiphany, this realization, they've come to their conclusions, whereas you've managed to retain your ball disposition. You can access it. And there's so few people that can do that who are flatties, and let's make that clear. There's plenty of people who can access it as a globe-believing fundy, but you're not one. So you're very unusual in that respect, and it's a tool that I can't get enough of. So I just want to say a big thank you to John.
Huh. I didn't even know that. I don't know. When I heard him first time, I thought, like, yeah, of course this guy's been a flat earther like since 2015 or something. Right?
No,
You didn't know that, Arwin?
I had no idea. Sorry.
No, I thought it was the Black Swan that turned you, weren't it, John?
that's correct. Can you just give us a quick, just because I like hearing it, can you just recite your recent transition path, if you will, from globe to flat, if you will, John, father of a stolen child?
Well, I kind of remember everything. I was in the kitchen cooking breakfast. I was listening to it on my phone. I heard the argument the first time, and I actually rewound the live stream because I felt like someone had hit me really hard, and everything went stiff. I couldn't breathe because I don't know why I chose to listen at that moment, because usually I'm, laughing and making fun of everything. But in that moment, I actually, it got through, and I don't know why other people can't, but so I pretty much stopped doing everything, and I listened to the rebuttals, and when they said refraction, it just, I couldn't do it no more. It's like you can't refract that. You don't have a constant if you refract it.
So from that position, you're a baller who suddenly realised the stark and real truth in form of modus tollens. Your model's untenable, so obviously by default, understanding the argument means you're going to transition because you've got an untenable globe sphere belief with an unmanageable geometric physical point to get the R value, or claim that boats are blocked by it. All of those things fall by the wayside as soon as you understand the argument. Now, as I've just said, the fortunate thing about Father of a Stolen Child is that he can still position himself as that glober trolling Morgile and give us their argument back, because he's had to fight it when he was in that position. He's just managed to remember it all.
It's funny,
By the
though,
way, the
isn't it,
Morgile is back.
Sorry, go on, Adam. Sorry, Neil. Go ahead,
we've
Adam.
discussed in the past about how long will it take for a baller to get the Black Swan, and Neil, to me, John is the answer there, is they'll never get it, because as soon as they do, they stop being a baller.
That's exactly what we were discussing in the pre-show. Unfortunately, we had Allah dragged into it, and we were discussing some religious aspects that didn't need to be dragged in. Now, if I hadn't mentioned, it's all my fault. If I hadn't mentioned Shiva, then it wouldn't have been brought up as an example. But yes, exactly.
Come on, say it the way Father of the Stolen Child said it.
No, Neil, someone get him. Gag him, quick.
You forget in the pre-show we discussed the sextant and geometry that validates the Black Swan.
Indeed, we did. Let's stick with that.
Yeah, get your many arms back on the subject, Nathan.
Father of a Stolen Child said he felt physical pain. So the Black Swan, it's like remember when Tyson was in his heyday, just knocking people out to the point where they had no coordination. They tried to get up and they kept falling down. That's what the Black Swan will do to you.
Have you ever had a swan like peck at you and like hit you?
My daughter was attacked by a swan.
That's like, they're really strong.
Yeah, she was cornered by a swan.
Right, so don't mess with them, because they will F you up.
Well, before this conversation goes to the birds, let's move on.
Any evidence of gas pressure without the necessary antecedent of a container to press upon?
I'd like to see it.
None.
Oh God, was it the blue marble science got in my chat and claimed today that no, gravity is strong enough to keep the gas pressure on the wall.
Not a force.
Oh.
Any scientific evidence of gravity?
Well, hang on.
Yes,
Based
the
on
gas
that,
is pressing to the ball, so it has to be there.
There's the
Anthony,
evidence.
Anthony, are you here?
I am.
Gas does
So
not
if
go
you-
down, go boom,
if
boom,
you
Arwin.
if you take the cap off of that soda bottle, does blue marble's gravity hold the gas to the sides of that soda bottle work?
No, because the bottle goes flat, doesn't it? If gravity was holding the gas pressure in, then your soda would always maintain some element of fizziness, but it doesn't happen, does it? It goes flat within a few hours. But yet we're in a gravitational field. I find that would be a paradox. You can't have soda bottles going flat if we're in a gravitational field that's pulling back gas pressure.
So you're saying gas does not go down, go boom, boom, like solid, bonded, bouncy balls poured into a fish tank, as asserted by a PhD clown named Thunderfoot?
No, it would be silly to think that gas particles behave like solids, because they don't. Solids don't continue bouncing off everything with elastic collisions at high velocity and continue on their trajectory, conserving their momentum in accordance with the gas laws. Solids, they behave like bouncy balls. Gases don't do that.
I want to give a shout out to Sleeping Warrior, who's always available for a pop quiz.
Pop quiz.
I just got it.
Boom, boom.
Took me a while.
Right.
What about scientific
I
evidence?
argued extensively today about the gas pressure thing, and I did so also on 24/7 Discord yesterday, because there were people that were really having trouble understanding it from an honest perspective, and just there's so much mixing up as to the nature of the basic states of matter. There's so much mixing up into just the basics. All of it could be written down on a singular piece of paper, but yet out there in the world, everybody's confused about this. A lot of people are. They think that gases function just like the rest of the states of matter, and they don't. Right? Gas only displaces because of pressure differential, because of other gas surrounding it. That's the only reason it ever displaces. It doesn't have momentum. You can't throw gas just as is without a container and it will retain its motion. It never does that. It just responds to the pressure differentials, however it's arranged. And that's it. And people seem to have a lot of trouble understanding that. That's what I've noticed.
Yeah, so gas does not go down, go boom, boom, like solid bonded bouncy balls. It expands exactly as Anthony described, in all directions at high velocity until it strikes something, either another particle of gas or the walls of a container. If we have a sky vacuum, then that's a space for gas to fill. And gas expanding in all directions will fill any availability of volume it has to fill. That's entropy
Isn't it
increase.
interesting? Sorry, isn't it interesting that they apply conservation of momentum when it comes to Coriolis, but when it comes to gas molecules bouncing off each other with elastic collisions, they don't do that. They completely forget about the conservation of momentum when it comes to that. Isn't that ironic?
Yeah, other than that's their contradiction, doublespeak religion, that they have to, what's the word, suffer in cognitive dissonance as a result of us being here, pointing out the contradictions.
The pain of being a blurther.
Yeah, it is. Mental pain. Absolutely.
As we're getting towards the end of the show, I think I'll just give it a quick plug. Because obviously we're all on lockdown at the minute, we're not allowed out to play. I believe, according to what I believe I've heard, we're looking at sometime in June to be released from our prisons. Well, I'm planning on, based on Taboo Conspiracy's latest video where he's got the 19-mile observation, I'm planning on going and doing an observation at 31 miles to push the boat out a little bit further. Because 21 miles, 22 miles is the other one that he's done. I think to 30 miles is potentially doable. Maybe not, maybe so. I'm going to do the same observation that he did, but I'm going to do it over the Isle of Man one, and I'm going to do it when we get released from jail. So anybody in the UK that fancies coming up for because there's a pub on site with grub and stuff, so it's just basically a shindig. I'm gonna get the guy in Isle of Man. His name's Paul. He's gonna get a laser in his end. I'm gonna get a laser my end. We're both gonna look at each other with P900s and see if we can see each other. It relies on the ocean or the sea being a little bit flatter than tidal, because sometimes it can be choppy. But essentially 30 miles. Yeah, I'm up for that. So just a quick plug for what might be happening if we get released out of our jails. Although obviously it's a bit subject to Boris making his mind up, but it's definitely on the cards.
Did I hear you mention
Sounds
free
fun.
bar?
Not a free bar. There is a bar on site.
Oh, I heard that too. I don't even drink. I'm just joking.
But I'm gonna do a recce to see if we can actually get it like in a, because obviously 30 miles is a lot. It's a big distance to go, and it's picking out a little tiny pixel in a wall of blackness. It's not that easy to do. So I'm gonna try and do it a couple of times, but beforehand to make sure I can actually do it. I don't want to try it for the first possible time and never get it because it was impossible because it was too small. Because of the angular resolution limitation. Yeah, that thing that Simon Dan ignores when he puts out his observation claims or his challenge. I'm going to make sure we can do it.
We have all the housekeeping questions. Any single viable hypothesis from any of the fields of astronomy, cosmology, or astrophysics?
Not yet.
9.
They're not really interested in doing that. They just want to continue the story and then get people away from the physical reality and more towards the story. So why would they try to define something through science? That would be against their interest.
Well, they use the
The
term.
level of
Go on, whoever that was.
the level of cognitive dissonance when it comes to thinking of all these questions and their answers is kind of mind blowing. It gets me like at least twice a week. I think about it. It's kind of nuts.
But you think about their cognitive pain and holding two positions simultaneously on various subjects.
Yeah, like consider like any of these questions. Like we understand the end result, the ramifications of the answers of these questions, and we're honest with ourselves with them. But some of the people who come here, who argue for the ball side, it's oftentimes like pretty ridiculous. Hearing the supposed rebuttals that aren't really rebuttals, but it's really just them working through their cognitive pain of one level or another, whatever stage they're at. And it's bizarre to me that like these questions even still need to be asked, but I understand their place. Like they're amazing questions for that reason. But it boggles my mind sometimes. That's all. Hopefully I'm not the only one.
Yeah, people used to claim shills and paid opposition and all this. No, people will retain on their faith because it's really difficult to relinquish, and they'll argue in cognitive pain to the degree that we see without any financial incentive to do so. You're talking about people and their religious faith, and they'll fight to preserve it.
If I may, I have a small piece of testimony from myself back in the past, because this kind of weird sophistry, double speaking, it's not unique to just YouTube, okay? This sort of stuff, even from person-to-person communication, has been going on for decades and decades. And back in the past, when I still believed in the ball, and I would listen to these guys in order to find more information, right? To figure out what's out there, I got really annoyed. Like, why are you thinking it's okay to have blatant doublespeak about something just because you're not sure, right? It felt to me like you're covering your tracks when you should just be honest and say, I don't know really. I haven't figured it out yet. And I got really pissed off against so many people doing that. And now I'm looking at it from a flat earther perspective, and I realized, like, holy shit, they have to do that. They have to round it out like that to keep people indeed actively stuck in a cognitive dissonance where I never went. I never went into that even as a baller. I was just annoyed by it. Like, why are you being so blatantly wrong? And why don't you just admit you don't really know? Right?
Yep. Why don't you just say, I don't know? They can't because their pride gets in the way. With that, I'm going to say, if you are watching this on either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley premiering streams, then stay tuned, as there will be an after show to follow. Unfortunately, if you are watching this live, this is where we bid you farewell. A huge, massive, enormous thank you to all of you tuned in, smashed the super chat, liked, commented, shared, subscribed, and joined as a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member. Once again, stay tuned if you're watching on either premiering stream. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I'll see you all in the next video.
What a lovely day!
Right?
Well,
But-
they're not you, Arwin. They don't have your mind.
Right. True.
Well, the thing with the reciting the Black Swan is I've never heard a single baller even attempt to say it the way that it was constructed originally, or any variation thereof. It's always they add in what they want to add into the argument so that they have a position to argue from. I don't think they're capable of saying it.
I agree, because it's painful.
Yeah, well, the
You
conclusion
said
is...
yourself it was painful for you.
Well, the conclusion is distance to horizon beyond the geometric capabilities of a sphere Earth, therefore the Earth is not a sphere. Well, they're never going to be able to say that.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. So offer them 2 minutes to say whatever they want, you know, with uninterrupted, as long as it's not an insult to one of the panel, you know, 2 minutes uninterrupted to preach pretty much. And they still can't do it. I think it'd be a good way to highlight that they're not listening.
But you'll offer them the opportunity and they'll do what you said, which is recite it in the way they want it to be, the argument, adding in something that's easy to debunk as a straw man. And then when you point out that they can't do it, they'll say, no, I want my 2 minutes to preach.
I don't think this is anything new. We've been giving them that opportunity ever since it came January 2020. I mean, they get to the point where the first part is their position, and after that, they check out.
Because it's painful. Listen, if I had to say at the end of my faith, therefore Jesus is not real, that would crush me. And that's exactly what they have to do. Therefore, the earth is not a sphere. It's over. Done. And they can't do it because it pains them.
Do you know what? I've got to tell 10th this whilst the topic of Christ has come up. My dad's, and anybody else for that matter, my mum and dad are basically good people. They're kind of like practicing Christians or active Christians or whatever the phrase you want to call it is. They consider themselves to be of God, right? They read the Bible, they go to church, they do all the good things. I know it doesn't really rub off on me, but ultimately they're of good nature. I had to correct my father on his rendition or his recollection of Genesis the other day. I was talking to him about Taboo Conspiracy's latest video. This is what I was going to say yesterday before John did what he did. And because my dad's perception on Genesis doesn't really match what it actually says, to call my dad out on Genesis recollection was just a brilliant moment. And it came from Genesis 1:2, where it says, obviously, in the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Now the earth was formless. And I said, Dad, formless doesn't mean shape, like spherical or of shape. It means without shape. It's in the definition. And then his response to me was, formless, yes, but then it changed at God's command. God spoke it into being, and now it has shape. Isn't that brill, son? And I said, where does it say that? And then he says, this is his response. He said, read Genesis and the account of creation. Read it slowly and carefully. Read it out loud, and you will discover how it was formless. But then as God spoke, the words, let there be. It isn't a trick, son. It is a fact. But you do need the faith to really believe it. Faith can be trusted. And then he goes on. And I said, he doesn't speak a shape. He raises land. And I cited it from Genesis 1:9. And it says, and God said, let the water under the sky be gathered to one place. That indicates we're in a bowl or flat, but it doesn't indicate that we're on a sphere. Anyway, and then it says, and let dry ground appear. Now, that to me indicates it's rising out from the ground on either from a bowl position or from a plane position, but definitely not on a sphere position. So I had to correct my dad. And I said, Dad, it suggests that we're either in a bowl or flat, but not convex. And then he starts talking about faith instead. So I'm correcting my dad on his understanding of Genesis based on his perception that God made it so, and it changed into a sphere, and it doesn't say that. And I was like, sit down, Dad. It was brilliant.
I've had
And God spoke, and it was a sphere.
I like his misplaced rebuttal as well, because when he's implying that you should have faith, the implication is faith in the heliocentric model. That's what he's actually asking for.
Yeah. But that's the problem in the church today. They are not looking at Genesis.
I've had to correct pastors. I'd say, look, why are you falling for scientism?
Exactly.
Now, they can't address Genesis anymore because then eventually they'll have to get to Adam and Eve, and then they have to recognize that there's two different sexes and not 50.
Well,
so they got a problem. They don't address it.
But when you speak something, when you use words on a basic level, you're understanding, right? When I'm speaking to you, I'm using words that I understand to get a concept across to you. For them to recite the Black Swan, they have to understand the words that's coming out of their mouth. And
exactly.
I think that's why they can't do it, because if you understand the Black Swan argument, you can't be a baller. It's just, it's over.
You're the perfect example, John. It happened to you.
Hey, Sleeping Warrior.
Yo.
Take him next time you have this discussion with anybody who says they believe Genesis, take them to verse 14 and say, how does this work with your heliocentric model?
Let's hear it.
Genesis 1:14.
Yeah, because
what is it? Read it.
Hang on. Because the earth was made first. And then in verse 14, all the luminaries were put inside the firmament, a container of some type. So how's the heliocentric model match that? It doesn't.
It doesn't. It's one of the contradictions. I've seen a long list somewhere where somebody compared heliocentrism to the actual words in the Bible, and that was one of the examples. So you've got, okay, the Big Bang.
Problem is, though, whilst I agree that, I mean, I don't like the claim that the Bible is a flat Earth book. I don't think it is to be perceived that way. I think it might be a book of guidance or a book of the will of God or whatever you want to describe it, but you shouldn't really describe it as a flat Earth book. But when you look into some of the verses, they do definitely lean towards it being flat. But then try and correct your own father on his understanding of the book of the Bible, which is what he prides himself on, right? He thinks he understands it, and I'm not saying he doesn't. But when you're trying to explain to him, hey, Dad, it doesn't actually say that, it says this, and then you get the book out, and then you go, hey, look, and then you watch his face, and he just goes, I'm going to twat you, son.
Yeah, well, you know, I've had to do that with people who say money is bad. I said, no, let's go to the verse. It's the love of money that's bad.
Exactly.
And so, and again, I know Neil jumps on me on this, but there's people who say you can't have any alcohol, and yet Bible says you could have alcohol. It just says don't overdrink and don't get drunk. So
No,
they
just
always
break your tops.
It never said anything about not getting tipsy.
No, I just break 10
Sorry, I had to say that.
because I know he likes his wine.
It's so
with his
awesome.
dinner.
In the middle of my sentence, you guys start the beginning of yours.
I'm sorry.
I love it. Time for an appetizer.
Give me a shot.
You're too good of a Christian, Ted.
No, I'm a literalist. I went into apologetics early. I studied the faith and said, what is the Christian message? Because I got a born again moment in my life where I cried out and God answered my prayer. And now for the first time, I'm opening up the Bible ever. ever, ever, ever. And I'm saying, how do I know this book is true? How do I know this book is from God? So I just jumped in to apologetics and hermeneutics, and I saw all the attacks against the Christian faith and the Word of God for 2,000 years concerning the New Testament, and then all the ones that were done against the Old Testament prior to that. And I read those books. I have those books in boxes in my garage. And I welcome arguments. I say, so tell me, why do you believe the Bible is not true? And they throw it there. I said, well, let's go research it. So I was always open to give a defense for the faith. But now if I'm a lazy Christian who just says, well, I just believe, but I didn't do the homework, that's not what the Bible instructs us to do. The Bible says check everything out before you believe it. It actually instructs us to do that. It wants us to use our mind, not blind faith.
Right.
So
So a better question
when
would...
did it go to the globe? When did it switch to the globe?
It didn't.
When
It
did
never
this
did.
happen?
That's only churches. That's only church teachings.
Well, let's
People
see.
getting in there saying, no, it's a globe. We have to be scientific. We have to get with the times. That's what
Yeah, but
that
I
is.
used to, but Arwin, I used to preach it as part of God's glory. How look, we're all standing on a ball, but gravity's keeping us on, and if the Earth axis goes the wrong way, we'll fry. You know, I used to preach it as God's glory, like He's amazing. But that's not how He describes it in Genesis.
Well,
Did
we
you
all
ask me
learn
the
from our
question?
mistakes. So
Who'd you ask that question to, Neil?
10th man.
Okay, maybe I can answer now. So when Martin Luther, the best I could figure it out, when Martin Luther turned against the rituals and the stance of the state church, Catholicism at the time, and he was a monk, and he went to Rome and he was appalled at what he saw. And he came back and God used him to do the Reformation. And that's his whole goal, was to put a Bible in every man's language in their hand, because you don't need a religious authority or a government of the church, the papacy and the cardinals and all that crap to tell you. God could tell you right through His Word. And so, of course, if that happened, then the whole system would fall down. So that's when the Reformation started. And it was at that same time that Copernicus was around with his little deal. And so Martin Luther and Calvin, all these people spoke against Copernicus's model, because they said they're trying to take Genesis and destroy the Bible so that the common man won't trust it. And that's where it goes back to, as one source, as why they did it, is to put doubt in the Genesis story. And of course, I don't believe that the Catholic leadership is Christian at all. I believe there are many Catholics who love Jesus and they'll be in heaven, but they got to be really bad Catholics to go there, because they can't get to heaven if they think they're going to do it by works. It's all a gift, a grace of God. Just trust in Christ, the resurrected Savior.
Hey, 10th, it was about something you said that I have to disagree with, is how do you know the Bible's not true? When you said that, because if you're talking about truth, you're begging the question that there is truth, and then you're asking them to debunk truth with truth.
No,
it's contradictory. It spirals out. That's why nobody can do it.
No, that's not the context in which I would say it. If someone comes to me and says the Bible's not true, I say, you made a claim, show me where it's not true. That's the context I'm saying it.
Well, what I'm saying is, for them to say the Bible's not true, they're assuming truth to begin with. They're assuming that there is a truth, and then they're going to supposedly use that truth to debunk truth.
Well, I see, you're going somewhere where I would let them set that trap for themselves. If they're not denying truth per se when they say the Bible's not true. Now, if they come out and are non-objective and everything's relative and they don't believe in objective truths, then I would go where you're going, because now they have to make an absolute statement that there's no truth, which means there is at least that truth. So they die right there. But if it's just a person, a normie, who listened to a science teacher or whatever and says, well, I don't believe the Bible is true. And I go, have you ever read it? No. Well, then what part are you saying is not true?
Right. First question, what about? What about
Exactly.
Well, I've got an issue on that
Can
because
you be more
you said about
specific?
alcohol, and as a proud Rastafarian, the Holy Pibby says that we should only consume things that are natural and raw. So, going to disprove that?
Excuse me, alcohol exists in nature. Fruit laying around in the jungle starts to ferment. There's all these sightings of animals getting drunk off their ass in
Not
nature.
raw.
Really?
Nathan,
Yes, really. Yes,
there's
really.
a scripture. All things are lawful for me, but not all things are expedient. It's not what goes into the body that defiles a man, it's what comes out. So everything within reason, I don't think we have a problem with, like medicine or alcohol, as long as you're not getting drunk and sinning. God is not so much concerned about what you're putting in your body, other than how it might harm you if you do it too much or you put poison, God forbid. But he's more interested in what's coming out of your heart, the real you.
I don't know. As a proud Hindu, I would say that my body is a temple.
It is.
It's a matter of interpretation.
It is, but for the one true God.
I'm going to play Pontius Pilate. What is truth?
The
Indeed.
left jab.
Truth is immutable.
Indeed. I'm going to
That's
round
right.
out on those notes. So with that, I'm going to say a huge, massive, enormous thank you, first and foremost, to both Discord and G+ panels for making today's after show possible. Of course, a massive thank you to all of you in either Nathan Oakley 1980 or Nathan Oakley premiering streams for hopefully smashing the super chat, liking, commenting, sharing, subscribing, and joining as a Nathan Oakley 1980 channel member. Also, below this video, there is a link to get £50 for swapping your UK electricity supplier to Octopus Energy. I've been Nathan Oakley, and I'll see you all in the next video.